Good evening and welcome to Spoilitics, where sports and politics mix and mingle. I'm Stacey Johnson. Joining me tonight is Aguna, the Nigerian moderate Republican. Keith, I don't know, he's incognito, the constitutional conservative. Stephen, the independent thinker. And my cousin, Todd. We've got a lot for you for the show tonight. Final hours of voting in the Georgia Senate runoff. Russell Wilson becoming the Broncos' disaster has turned him into NFL punching bag. Just today, 17 criminal charges were brought against the Trump organization, and they stuck. The organization has been convicted of criminal tax fraud. Yahoo says Ronaldo's replacement, 21-year-old Gonçalo Ramos, propels Portugal into the quarterfinals in the World Cup. New York House of Representatives Hakeem Jeffries plays down chances of the Democrats voting for a GOP compromise speaker over McCarthy as Arizona Republican announces his run for Speaker of the House, complicating McCarthy's path. College football power rankings after conference championship week. We'll talk about that. Punch Bowl News says it's December 6th. Today is Tuesday, December 6th, and the government runs out of money in 10 days. Can you imagine that? Billion-dollar government runs out of money in 10 days? Senior lawmakers in both parties have been trying to cut an agreement for a year-long omnibus funding package, yet they remain tens of billions of dollars apart, especially on non-defense spending. Around 10 of the women accused, or who accused Deshaun Watson of sexual misconduct, attended his Cleveland Brown debut versus Houston, an attorney says by CNN's Ala Elisar. The NDAA, do you know what that is? It's the National Defense Authorization Act. President Obama made it into law. The Pentagon policy bill, which is passed every year for 6 decades, is also a real mess at the moment. Decisions they will make, like the Safe Banking Act, which would allow banks to handle cannabis, get it, marijuana-related business, has been a top priority for lawmakers in both parties. A provision that would cancel the vaccine mandate for members of the military. So this is in it. So the mandate that says members of the military must take COVID vaccine, they're trying to cancel that in this new NDAA. And the Electoral Count Reform Act. The bipartisan electoral reform bill is also in the mix, and lawmakers feel like it needs to get done this year. A COVID resurgence prompts new CDC mask guidance for Long Island and parts of New York City. And then tomorrow, which a lot of people aren't talking about, the Supreme Court. Did you know they're considering limiting judicial scrutiny in U.S. elections? And it makes the Supreme Court the one and only decider of state legislators' decisions when it comes to elections, giving them a lot of power. So if the state decides that they don't want to accept an election, they won't have the right to do that. The Supreme Court will. 45% of public schools had at least one teacher vacancy this fall, and more if we can fit it in. First up, the Commanders and the New York Giants. Stephen, what was going on with that tie score 2020?
Redskins had to go down or go up to New York and play a game which they may have lost because it's hard to play at someone else's place. They ended up tying, which is better than a loss. And now they're off for a week. And then guess who they play when they come back from their bye? All rested and happy. They play the Giants again at home, which should be a win. It should be an easy win because the Eagles are going to play the Giants this week, and they're going to beat the hell out of them so bad. that they might not even have any players to put on the field to play against the Redskins. It's looking pretty good for my Washington team right now. Of course, I'm also with the Raiders now, but you know what? I've been a Washington Redskins fan longer than most people on this show has been alive, and it's really nice to see them have a lot of success this year after everything that's been so bad, and with the horrible ownership and everything that's gone wrong. It's really nice to see them succeed, and it's really nice to see some guy like Heineke come out there who's just a normal guy, just somebody we can relate to who really tries hard and really loves playing and reminds me of Brett Favre, and that's his favorite player. It's nice to have him out here for us to really just give it everything he has. It doesn't even matter. He'll be dragging a leg or dragging his arm. It doesn't matter if he's beat up. He gives it everything he has, and that's all we can ask for. He's not Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, the GOAT, or Aaron Rodgers, but he does as best as he can do, and that is very inspiring for the rest of the team. It takes us a long way. He doesn't have to be the best. We may have somebody on the bench, Wentz, who may be technically better than him, but he doesn't inspire the team the way Heineke does. So it's great. It's been a great year. If we don't ever win another game, it's been a great year. They far surpassed anything I thought they were going to do. And overall, this has been one of the best NFL seasons I've ever seen. So I don't have any with
do you want to talk about what exactly happened with your team?
Well, they tied
Sunday.
the Giants.
How do you tie the Giants?
They ended in a tie. Well, they were behind, and in the last couple minutes, they tied the game up, and then they had to go into overtime, and nobody could score after that. And that's fine with me because a tie is better than a loss. They almost lost the game.
So where does that put them in the NFC East?
What?
I mean, where does that put them in the NFC East besides being behind the Eagles?
Well, they're in third place, and I have nothing against the Eagles. I have nothing against the Eagles. But what it does is it gives them they can still make the playoffs if they can win this week and a couple more games. They can make the playoffs, and there's nothing wrong with that. If the Redskins,
you mean a wild skin? They can make the playoffs in a wild skin berth.
Yeah, a wild card. If they can get a wild card because other teams are losing, if they can, then anybody can have a chance to win. They have a great defense, and we're getting Young back. Maybe the 2 weeks from now, or maybe a little later. But we have a great defense that's solid right now, top 10 defense, and we have an offense that has weapons that the Giants don't have. They have Barkley, but we have 2 great running backs and 3 great receivers, including Terry McLaurin. They call him Scary Terry. We have a lot of weapons that can hurt any team that we play. So if we make the playoffs, we could be okay. It's just coming on to matchups and who you have. So this Washington team is formidable, and there's nothing. They're no slouch. People have got to pay attention to them right now because anything can happen. And I do believe 100% they will beat the Giants at home in 2 weeks because the Giants will be beat up by your Eagles.
You got that right. But I want to share my screen and show you this article talking a little bit about what the players thought about the Giants and that tie. It said it's not a loss. It's not a win either. I think you understand that part of it, but just disappointed that we couldn't have played better, couldn't have taken advantage of some situations and won the game. That's the disappointing part. It's not a loss. I think we understand that. We look to improve going forward. And this was by Daniel Jones.
Right. Because they're at home, and he's upset because they should have won at home, and then in 2 weeks we play them at our house. So, but the fact that they couldn't even beat us at home is terrible for them. So this is why this is a win for the Washington Redskins. It's not it was actually a loss for the Giants. So when they come to our house, We're going to tear them up. And you know what's really cool? Finally, we're going to pack the stand, not with Giant fans, like what usually
Okay.
happens. We're going to have almost 100% Redskin fans that are going to be there, and they're going to rock it. The Giants players are not going to be able to hear anything. Their teeth are gonna rattle because it's gonna be so loud, and this is why it turns out very nice for the Washington team.
Okay. So
Guarantee
that
it.
just sounds like, I'm sorry, that sounds like a bunch of fluff of, yeah, we're going to win, but it's not talking about how you guys are really going to get to, where you need to go to not end up in a tie to make better chances to
We have
get
a better
in the
team. We have a
playoffs.
better team than the Giants, which is evidence is they couldn't beat us on their own turf. If they were better than us, they would have beat us. Now
Okay.
they come to our turf and we're going to destroy them. And another thing is, with help, is they're going to be worn out and beat up because the Philadelphia Eagles are going to destroy them and
Well,
they're
you
going
got
to
that right.
hurt them. They're going to hurt them. They're going to hurt different players. There's nothing they can do. Barkley is playing really horrible lately, and
Mm-hmm.
and and the Eagles are going to stop him. They got Demonica Sue. I can't think of his first name, but they have Sue, and they brought in another guy, and they have a good defensive line that's going to stop Barkley. And they have no receivers in New York. They have no receivers. Y'all are going to tear them up. My only thing is, I'm scared that Jalen Hurts and the offense is going to have to back off because they're beating them so bad. They're going to be like the Bad News Bears, the New York Giants. They're going to
That's a good
destroy
thing.
them.
That's a good thing. Thank you for
Yep.
saying that.
And then
So
y'all will still only have one loss after this week.
that's right. So let me
Right.
show you my screen. Deshaun Watson, can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, let me make it a little bit bigger because Todd always says he can't see it. Um, it's making me get the screen. Okay, Deshaun Watson, around 10 of the women who accused Deshaun Watson of sexual misconduct expected to attend his Cleveland Brown debut versus Houston. How do you think that game went?
Well,
10 of the How
he
do you
was
think he
rusty.
played on that game?
He was very rusty, Stacy. It didn't matter who was in the crowd because 10 people are not going to overcome 50, 60, 70,000 people. That didn't bother him. He's very rusty. He hasn't played in a year and a half, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and he's not in sync with the team at all. It's going to take a little while, but eventually it's really going to help Cleveland to have him there because he's a top 5 quarterback. Maybe not this year, but obviously next year. But it may help him a little bit.
So
But
they said he got a mix of boos and cheers
yeah,
for the first regular season game. They said that Watson returned to the field after 11 game suspension without pay. They felt it important to make clear that they are still here and that they matter. I was proud of them for that. And I guess they're talking about that's the lawyer representing the accusers attending the game told CNN in a statement, I have made that opportunity available to them. I haven't been to a Texans game in many years, but because they're going, I will go too. Cousin Todd, what was the point in having those women there? And who won that game?
I don't know what the point of having those women were. I find that people do that to try to make a statement. Like, for example, Donald Trump had Clinton's accusers at a debate, which I thought was so.
I mean, it worked too, because I think that people saw the accusers, that it reminded people of what he was accused of, and Hillary Clinton didn't win.
I don't think it had anything to do with those women because Hillary Clinton wasn't accused of raping those women.
her
You see what
husband
I mean?
was.
Her husband was.
Her
So,
husband.
When
what
I
happens
wait,
to being known by association?
that's
And she
just.
stood by her man after he raped those women.
Wait a minute now. He didn't rape those women.
How do you know? Were you
So,
there?
were you there?
Yes.
Who did Donald Trump rape?
Nobody.
His wife says otherwise.
His
Are you
That's not true.
married
ex-wife.
to him?
His wife said he raped her.
Yes, ma'am.
You can't rape your wife.
Oh, do you see this? This is why he's a Republican. I'm so glad you said that. How typical. These are Trump supporters saying you can't rape your wife, you own her, so you can beat her. This was the
No, I didn't.
law
So you
before
think
the
having sex with a
before
woman is the
70s.
same thing as beating a woman?
You
So
own this woman.
No, you
This
don't
is
own
what
anybody.
of
Nobody owns anybody. But if you have sexual
my
relations
point
with your wife, you're not raping her. You're having sex. And
again.
if she doesn't
Now,
want it, then it's not
now,
cool.
Stacy, you're a Republican, aren't you? Now, let
I'm
me
not a
ask
Republican.
you, Republican, do you, do you think you can rape your wife? That would be yes or no, and then explain.
Anybody can claim rape,
Do you
Todd,
hear this? Do
even
you
if it
hear this,
doesn't
Trump
happen.
supporter? This is
Anybody
what
can claim
America
rape,
has
even if
come
it doesn't
to
happen,
now
Todd.
that Trump was president.
so
So
I think that yes, someone can be an aggressor in a physical relationship.
Right.
Yes.
wait,
Right.
what kind of white Republican crap are you spewing here? I said, can a woman be raped by her husband? He
Yes.
just said,
Yes.
oh, thank you, white Republican.
Yes. But do you really believe
I'm
Donald
not
Trump
white.
raped
You
his
can look at
wife?
my skin. I'm not white. What are
Do
you
you
talking
really
about?
believe Donald Trump raped his wife?
I don't know. I
Explain.
want to move on.
No,
I
I
don't know.
do
I don't want to
not.
move
No,
on.
of course you do because you are a Republican. Now, this is crucial. This way of thinking is what is bringing America down. Did you hear
Right,
him
right,
say,
right, right,
you
right,
can't
right.
rape your wife? You can rape your wife. If you have sex with her and she doesn't want you to, that is called
Yes, I understand that, but
rape.
I don't think Donald Trump was capable of
No,
raping
you didn't
anybody.
say that.
If
Now you're
Donald Trump's
switching it.
wife,
Now
Todd,
you're
if Donald Trump's
changing what
wife
you
did not
just
want to have
said.
sex with him, he would have paid somebody else to have sex with him.
Oh gosh, you know so much about your lover, don't you? So
No,
now
So
listen,
he paid that other woman like
his
$700,000
okay,
to have
I'm
sex
not
with.
interested. I want to stick with the facts. His ex-wife
your
said,
facts.
"What? No, this is the deceased facts."
This is what she said.
All right, move on. Wait, time is a
Do
moving.
you
We got
hear
to
him
move
say
on.
this is what she so every rape victim, oh no, she said that, but he didn't say that. This is what America has come to. When you have crazy people like Stephen, because Donald Trump was president, they have license to say exactly how they feel.
Well,
This
everyone
is
has license to say exactly how they
oh
feel.
no,
It's
no,
called the
they
First
used to be
Amendment.
smart enough to be quiet about it. Now they say it out loud. This is why you have the Supreme Court saying abortion is no longer legal in the United States. Right after
Supreme
they
Court
said
did
it
not say
was.
abortion is not legal in the United
Of course
States.
they did.
No, of
And they
course they
got
did
this
not.
job by
They said it goes to
lying.
states, it's
Of
states'
course they
rights.
got this
The
job by
Supreme Court,
lying to
Todd,
America.
you're severely uneducated
Of
on the
course.
subject.
And you are.
What they said was it goes to the states. It goes to the
It
states.
didn't go to the states.
It
It
does.
was,
The Supreme Court did not say that
of course,
abortion
they
is
did.
illegal.
So this is why,
Cousin
girl.
Todd, this is why you're not an independent thinker. You can't think for
Okay.
yourself.
So
They
anyway,
said
my
it on The
point is,
View, and you believe it.
oh gosh, you believe everything Donald Trump says.
You believe
See,
everything The
this is
View
why you
tells you.
cannot rape
All
your
right,
wife.
so
If you're married to her, you can't rape her. Come on, everybody knows that.
I'm
And then he
saying Donald
flipped it.
Trump never raped his
so
wife.
let's just close
How
this
It was
out
did
with the
you
never
know?
Cleveland.
proved that Donald
Were
Trump.
you there?
Okay, I want to close out this screen and just say that the Cleveland Cavaliers beat who did they play? The Houston Texans. That's all. That's all I wanted to do. All right, thank you. We're going to move on. I wanted to wait until Aguna came back on so we could talk about the great Eagles and World Cup. So let's move on to the Trump organization.
It's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant. Look, that was just your boyfriend 5 minutes
It's
ago when you
irrelevant.
said he did not rape his wife,
Because it
even
has
though
nothing to do with Donald Trump. This has nothing to
So
do with Donald Trump.
the jury, let me share my screen again, as usual. The jury in New York found the Trump organization guilty of 17, all counts of tax fraud. all counts, 17 counts of tax fraud. They found them guilty. Can you? I can't believe it. Well, I can believe it.
I can.
I can believe it. But the question is, do you see this? It says Trump organization found guilty.
Uh-huh. I can believe it.
So how can the former president have his run an organization that doesn't pay his taxes, even though he wasn't charged in the felony or scheme?
Right. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump.
What does it have to do with? What does it have to do with?
It has nothing to do with Donald Trump. If it did, they would have him there as well. It doesn't have anything to do with him. It's a company that he's involved with, and anybody can go after a company. What state was this, Stacey?
New York, and it's a 15-year.
Stacey, was it New York?
New York. Can you hear me?
Then Stacey, who runs New York, Stacey? Who runs New York? People who hate Donald Trump.
So
Stacey,
listen,
you know what it is.
Let's look at the article.
You know what it is.
Let's look what the article says. The article says business records connected to a 15-year scheme to defraud tax authorities by failing to report and pay taxes on compensation for top executives. The Trump Corporation and Trump Payroll Corporation were found guilty on all charges they faced.
Of course they were. Because where are the judges? Who are the judges in New York, Stacey? They're all Democrat.
That has nothing to do with it.
It has everything to do with it.
It has nothing to do
everything to do with it.
It has nothing to do with
New York is a left-wing state.
Stephen, you got to let me finish. I'll let you finish. It has nothing to do with the left-leaning state. It says business records connected to a 15-year scheme to defraud tax authorities by failing to report and pay taxes on compensation for top executives. The Trump Corporation and Trump Payroll Corporation were found guilty on all charges they faced. Donald Trump and his family were not charged in this case, but the former president was mentioned repeatedly during a trial by prosecutors about his connection to the benefits doled out to certain executives, including company-funded apartments, car leases, and personal expenses. The organization could face a maximum of $1.6 million in fines.
Nothing.
When sentenced in mid-January, it's not at risk of being dismantled, and there's no mechanism under New York law that would dissolve the company.
Stacey, $1.6 million in fines is nothing.
So
that
Keith,
do you hear this idiot?
So Keith, I want to know.
You sound completely crazy, Steve.
I want to know from Keith. Excuse me.
You used to say Trump was a thief, a criminal. You didn't know why they would vote for him to be president.
Trump is the cleanest politician that has ever lived.
Hey, Stephen,
Trump is the cleanest politician.
You cannot do this and then do this. You said,
let Keith
why
speak.
did they vote for him? He's
let Keith speak.
He's
Todd,
crooked.
you're wrong.
That's what you said.
Todd, you're wrong again. You ought to be used to it. Now let Keith talk.
I'm wrong about what?
You're wrong about everything.
You said he's a thief.
Go ahead, Keith, my brother.
He's dumb. You said people that vote for him are dumb. This is right after he said, I could shoot somebody in Middle Fifth Avenue and not lose a vote. You said he's calling them dumb. He's calling them stupid. Keith. And they are stupid if they vote for him.
I know you're not
That's
rude,
what
but
you
interrupt
said,
him.
Stephen.
All right,
I said the same crap for 18 years now.
That's what you said.
To have a president of the United States run a corporation that was found guilty on 17 charges of tax fraud says what about his leadership?
Nothing.
Well, you just said that Trump was not personally charged. In other words, he didn't have anything to do with that. That was a company,
his own company.
Why wasn't he charged?
Okay, so why is it that he was not charged?
Why?
Okay, good question.
We read that
because he's smart enough to let you flunkies take the fall.
Why are you?
Dumb?
Why is the media spinning this if it's Trump that was personally charged? You act as if Trump was personally involved in tax fraud.
Listen,
is it
Trump
true or not? Was Trump convicted or not?
No. Because Trump is not a lawyer. Trump is not an accountant. He gets flunkies like you people to do his dirty work.
Again,
and
was
so
Trump charged or not?
This is why his accountant has to go to jail. Do you
Well,
think
was
his
Trump
accountant,
charged or not?
Nobody's going to jail, Todd.
Thank you.
Trump's accountant,
Nobody's
is?
going to jail.
Oh
Trump
gosh,
charged or not? This is
Okay.
a biased court. All
a
Democrat,
bias. Now it's a
Democrat-
biased court.
New York.
Democrat
Court.
jury, I guarantee you. We'll find out, Stephen. I'll do my
So
research.
let me ask you, Stephen and Keith, you talk about a biased court.
Yeah.
Charges are charges.
Anybody
People
that
have to
votes
file them.
against Trump is biased and wrong and out to get him,
Todd,
right?
can I say something, Todd?
Cult.
So
He's a cult leader, and you
Please,
idiots are
Stacey.
in the
Please,
cult.
Stacey.
Keep drinking the Kool-Aid.
Please, Stacey.
so my question is,
Oh God.
no one brings charges up for nothing. You have to have proof that something was wrong.
No, you don't.
Stephen
Not if
used
you
to
have
know that
judges
because Stephen
who are
used to
against
say
Donald
that.
Trump. You don't have to have charges. You don't have to have anything real. If these judges have biases against Donald Trump because they're in New York, they have biases against Donald Trump. They can do and say anything they want, and they can say guilty,
Without
guilty.
proof. Without
Donald Trump is
proof.
the cleanest politician that the United States has ever seen since George Washington.
There you go.
If they had
You
anything on
are-
Donald Trump,
Wait,
he would be in prison. He would
Right.
be jailed.
No.
He's not.
no.
They have nothing on him.
Thank
But
you.
you know who they
can't-
have everything on? Joe Biden. You know why?
Oh, look,
Because
look,
his
look.
son is a moron.
What
Because
difference
Hunter
does it make
Biden-
about his
Hunter
son?
Biden is a moron.
What difference does
And
it
Hunter
make about
Biden
his son?
exposed his dad. His father is going to take down the
Stacey,
entire
don't you want to
Democrat
move
Party.
on? Now,
Kidding, Stephen.
And
That's
that
what
has
you was-
nothing to do with being
look,
biased.
you don't know how stupid you look. You and
Get
your
him, Stephen.
cohort.
Get
You
him.
look
Hey,
stupid.
hey,
This is
Todd,
how stupid you are.
All right.
Watch
Go
this.
ahead.
Watch this carefully, and just remember, you're stupid. What is the difference between Joe Biden's son, who benefited from the president, and Donald Trump's children, who all benefited?
Have you seen Donald Trump's kid's penis? Have you seen Donald Trump's kids use cocaine? Have you seen
No,
Donald
you
Trump's
wanted to
kids
see
make
that.
deals with the Chinese? Have you seen
Yes.
Donald Trump's kids
You're
compromise Donald Trump
Yes.
the way Joe Biden's son compromised him with the Chinese for America? You're about to see the
Look,
collapse
you're
of the
about to
Democrat
see-
Party because of Joe Biden's son.
Stay off
You're
the dark
about
web.
to see it, Todd.
Stay
I haven't
off
been
the
wrong
dark
in
web.
10 years. Why am
Stephen,
I being wrong now?
Stay
Stephen,
off
Stephen.
the dark web.
I have
Stephen,
not been wrong, Todd.
Stephen,
You have.
Stephen,
You were born
Stephen,
wrong.
Okay,
Stephen,
Stay off
Stephen,
the
I
dark
have
web.
said-
Stephen.
I'll mute
Yeah,
myself.
Stephen, thank you. Now, Stephen, you have to say something, and you have to have some sort
Oh
of
no, you'll see.
proof
You'll see.
what
You
you're
just
saying is
wait.
true.
You're going to
I
see
say
article.
because I read it on the
Stacey,
dark
it
web.
comes true.
You're going to see
I
it.
can't
Okay, but-
help it that y'all bury your heads up in MSNBC and CNN and the Joy Show.
where
Or
do
what
you
do you call
bury
that
your
show y'all
head?
watch?
Where
What
do
is
you
the show
bury
y'all
your
watch
head?
that has
Fox
that what is
News
it?
and
What is
the
her name?
dark
Whoopi
web.
Goldberg. Y'all,
that's not
that's
the
where
show.
you
I
get
don't
all your
watch that.
information. This is
I
why
don't-
you're always wrong.
All right. So wait, okay, I can't with you all.
Watch.
You'll see.
You have to have some sort of
Every
cousin
time
Todd,
I've been right.
and cousin Todd, you too. You have to have some sort of article that dispels or proves what you're saying. You can't
What
just
did I
say
say?
you think it.
Wait, what did I say?
Anything you said, you
Besides-
had no article that proves it or not.
Okay, listen to me carefully. You know, and I know because you agreed that Donald Trump's ex-wife, fantasies he was talking about, but we didn't want to hear them. Nevertheless, we were talking about Donald Trump. His ex-wife
Organization-
accused him of rape. And Stephen said, hear this carefully, you can't rape your wife.
I didn't say that. I'm saying Donald Trump did not rape his
You
wife.
said
Hey,
that.
Aguna.
Hey,
Aguna,
listeners,
can you talk about the
rewind the
Eagles?
tape.
Aguna, can you
Rewind
talk
No,
about the
okay,
Eagles and
Stephen,
take us
no,
out of
we're
this
not going-
cousin Todd?
That's
weird
messed
Okay,
up.
business?
Stephen, we can't.
Sure.
I'm running this, honey. We
We're
got to
not
finish
going to talk
up at
about
the
the
Trump
Eagles?
organization. Yes, we are, but we're going to finish out the Trump organization being found guilty on 17 counts of tax
But
fraud.
Donald Trump is not. But Donald
Aguna, what
Trump
I
is
was saying,
clean.
Stephen, you got to stop. You're starting to go and you're not letting me finish. And
All
you
right.
know that leads to you being mute, which leads to you being mad. So let's
I'm
stop
not
it.
mad.
So Aguna, you know, the Trump organization, you don't get convicted of 17 counts of tax fraud for nothing. For him to do that and not for his organization to be guilty of that and for him to not have any guilt in it means
Mobility.
what?
Well, I mean, clearly, again, part of the how you set up these organizations is to give yourself limited liability. So I know Trump is a billionaire, so he knows how to
Which
set
is
it up
what
so
I
that
just said.
his exposure isn't maximized. So that doesn't mean that from in the court of public opinion, we shouldn't look at this situation as if, okay, if he's going to do that in the organization, how do you think he's going to run the country or do other things, right? But at the end of the day, from a legalese standpoint, clearly, it's not whether
His
you're guilty or
accountant.
innocent, is whether what you can be proven in court.
Right.
And so your
Which is why
organization was
his
fined a little bit
accountant
liable versus Trump
is going
himself.
to jail. Yeah.
That's the way the law is. That's how that's
Because
how
he
it's
can say, I'm not an accountant. I didn't know. He knew.
Right.
Which is why his
Then how come
accountant-
they didn't go after Donald Trump, Aguna? Why didn't they go after Trump?
He
because
just
he's
said
not
why.
an
Again, it's
He
not.
just said why he's
not-
insulated. He just said why they
Yeah, I
didn't
mean,
go after him.
this is how the law works.
This is how
law
he's
is
set up with
blind
the
in this
corporation.
country. It's not what's right or wrong. It's what can be proven in court, right? So liability in this case, he doesn't have any liability. So, and a lot of times, like in any criminal case or any civil case, these lawyers look at what is our best way to get the outcome that we want. It doesn't matter if it's Trump lawyers or anybody else. That's how lawyers are, right?
Okay.
So if they probably felt that they had a higher percentage of getting, either conviction or the civil suit or whatever by going through this means versus the other. So you can't sit there and say, why didn't they do this? Well, it's more to it than that. It's more about
Well,
what
where
can be
was
proven
this?
in court.
Aguna, was it in New York?
Yes, it was in New York, but it
Do
wouldn't
you
matter
think
where
Donald
it was.
Trump's organization had any chance in New York, Aguna?
Let me try to explain it
in New
this
York.
way.
$1 million.
Okay.
Stop applying Yahoo logic to the law. Okay.
Is Yahoo
You're saying
your
if he's
favorite
over
word?
in Florida, he has a better chance. These are a lot of these circuit judges and these judges have been, appointed by
New
Trump,
York.
appointed by. I mean, look.
But
the bottom line of it is stop looking at that aspect of it, Stephen.
No, I'm not.
Whether or not he did it, yes or no. Was he wrong, yes or no? You're sitting here worrying about kind of this conspiracy behind the fact that they're going
that's
after
on the
him.
dark web, yeah.
Come
In New
on,
York.
man.
But let me
Clearly,
say this.
This organization, there is some criminality here. There's some corruption here.
Which is what
Why
he
not?
used to say.
Because
But let me say
it's
this,
New York.
Aguna.
Because it's New York. So consider the source. Because if it was South Carolina, you would believe it.
Okay, now let me explain it this way. If Trump owned these apartments and he devalued them to get money, now this is his accountant. He can't do it. His accountant has to do it at his discretion. So Trump tells him, boost up the price. The accountant, not Trump, has to boost up the price and write, this building is worth $8 billion, when just 2 years ago he wrote it's worth $2 million.
Yeah, I mean,
so
Todd,
that helps
the same
Trump.
thing with the post
In
office.
New York, if it was somebody that was on the side of the left, if it was somebody on the left,
Stephen,
would they let it slide?
no.
Yes.
Stephen, what
But
you're
if it's
not going
Donald
to do,
Trump, they're not going to let it slide.
What you're not going to
Do
do
you
is
think
make
they're
this left
just
right.
being
This
judicial?
is right, wrong,
not.
what can be proven in court. This is how you lose credibility, Stephen, because you
No, it's
automatically
not.
try to make it about liberals, conservatives, when in fact, he did it here with the Department of Interior here in D.C. with the U.S. Postal Building. They inflated the price so that they can lease it back to the country at a higher rate. And so he was basically defrauding taxpayers. Now you're sitting here trying to make it left, right. No, it's right, wrong. And you're looking at this person, you're trying to make it about Donald Trump being a victim. He has millions of dollars. He has lawyers in place
Billions of
to
dollars.
insulate him from this. Well, I mean,
what I'm saying is somebody on the left does the same thing. They're not going to be scrutinized by
yes,
people,
they will. Yes,
judges
they will.
who are on the
They
left.
have. Who on the left?
What I'm saying
Who
is
on the left
true.
is doing that?
All right.
You have an
So
example?
I'm going to
People on the
share.
left are doing
I'm
it.
going to share this
People on
article,
the left, just
and
anybody.
I would like Keith, the constitutional conservative, to comment on this. This is an article published yesterday
The president
in
of the United States.
thehill.com by, excuse me, can you hear me? This is an article printed by Pence by The Hill, written by Brett Samuels yesterday at 11:14 a.m. It says, Vice President Pence pushes back on Trump's call to terminate the Constitution. And let me further extrapolate on that by saying what they're talking about. And then Keith, the constitutional conservative, I need you to address it. So it says former Vice President Mike Pence on Monday, yesterday, pushed back on former President Trump's assertion that the Constitution should be disregarded to allow for him to return to the White House in the wake of new revelations about Twitter's handling of a controversial story about Hunter Biden. I must tell you that I think that everyone that serves in public office, everyone that aspires to serve or serve again, should make it clear that we will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. How can you, Keith, uphold and defend the Constitution and then do what former President Trump suggested?
Well, first of all, the Constitution has already been breached thousands of times. So it's not Trump who violated the Constitution, and I doubt if Trump actually said, they take his words and twist them out of context. So I don't believe that that's what Trump meant. First of all, and that even with Pence, what that reporter is writing is,
my God.
look at the title of that the story you just read. Look at the caption. Look at the title. Incorrect. Trump never called for the Constitution to be violated. I'd like you to show me where he quote him in saying what he said.
Okay,
Actually,
so it says it right here. Murkowski on Trump. Trump called to suspend the Constitution in order to allow him to go back into office. That's what they're saying.
Are those his actual words, or is that what they are saying that is what they're assuming that he's the way they're paraphrasing? Are they paraphrasing?
Well, it says Trump has for years, if you look at this article, Trump has for years claimed the 2020 election was stolen and fraudulent.
True.
And that Hunter Biden colluded with his father over his business dealings, though there is no proof of either.
There is proof of that.
Listen, wait a minute, excuse me.
Come on.
But his calls for the Constitution to be ignored, Trump's calls for the Constitution to be ignored, marked a new level of incendiary rhetoric. Keith,
the Constitution was already ignored because Trump never got a hearing, and
check this out.
Heard, and they never investigated all of the claims that Trump tried to make. And we made claims, and even Pence did not do the right thing, because the claim is that Article 2, and I'm giving you the Constitution, Article 2 says that the legislature has the power to change laws. And laws were changed not by the legislature in several states, but they were changed by commissioners, governors, and these types of people. They were changed by election.
You're 100% correct.
It doesn't matter what Aguna
on
said.
this show is a liar.
On some point on this show, I just hope that Stephen and Keith are just brave enough. Find it in your heart to be brave enough to address an issue directly and not cast out these worthless pivots that don't mean anything. You basically said, first thing you tried to say, hey, let's discredit the source, because I'm too afraid to actually talk specifically to the topic. I'd rather pivot to something that makes me feel comfortable, and so I don't have to.
Okay, wait a minute. Now, okay, wait a minute. You're talking over Aguna, and he didn't say anything when you guys were talking.
Just address the issue. Okay. Bottom line of it is, look, if Trump said that, Okay, I get what you're saying, Keith. Show me the source and all that stuff. Even what you're using to try to say that state legislatures don't have it in the rights of their constitution to make laws based on or to do executive orders. Governors have the power to do that. Trump used executive orders when he was in the executive office. So he'd sit there and try to say that provision. Again, there were other states. He not only lost Pennsylvania, he lost Arizona, Michigan. And you're in the same argument they're making in Pennsylvania goes against the argument he made in Arizona. Pennsylvania said that the polls were open too long. Arizona says he filed a motion that the polls weren't open long enough. So which one is it going to be? Stephen has for months talked about proof. There is no proof. He raised $250 million and they didn't submit this evidence, this mysterious evidence that you guys are claiming he did. And in fact, instead of talking about, again, Trump launched one last point, Stacey. Instead of launching his campaign about what he can do differently or better for the country, you see that this candidate that Stephen and Keith so vehemently defend, his only platform is that the election was stolen from him and I deserve to be president. He has not said anything on policy. He has not said anything about inflation.
His policies were better
all he's doing
than
is saying
anything
he's
Biden has shown us.
He's a victim.
Okay, so excuse me. Let me. I want to
talk about Biden. We're talking about Trump. What's his policy?
Excuse me. I want to pivot to the Supreme Court. Excuse me. I want to pivot to the Supreme Court tomorrow.
Keith, we can't hear you.
Court. Tomorrow, the Supreme Court is considering. Now, no one's really talking about this, but the Supreme Court is considering limiting judicial scrutiny in U.S. elections, and that would make the Supreme Court one and only decider of state legislators' decisions when it comes to elections. So do you really know what that means, Cousin Todd? What does that mean?
Constitutional. That is not
muting. He's
but
muted.
If the Supreme Court is doing that,
not
Todd muted himself.
Todd, unmute yourself. There you go.
They have no authority to do that.
The Supreme Court has no authority to dictate.
Yes, Todd, Aguna. Let Todd speak.
Well, the Supreme Court has no. I'm just clarifying the question. The Supreme Court has no.
Todd, you're not. Aguna, you're not. Todd knows
federal elections at the state level. Shut up, Stephen. We're trying to have an educated conversation. I know.
Do you think Todd's not educated?
So
I'm not. That's not what I said.
Aguna,
that's what you're saying.
I agree with you on that one, Aguna.
I was just clarifying the argument.
Let Todd speak.
No,
Todd, please.
You don't let him speak.
Todd, you have the floor.
You got this bearded coalition going on. That's the only reason why
Aguna jump all over you.
You got the salt and pepper beard.
Todd, please.
Go on, Todd. We need you.
I like the Supreme Court that Donald Trump stacked, I think, is one of the most crooked Supreme Courts we've ever had.
All right, let's go back to Aguna.
And
Stephen, look, you're not an authoritarian on this show, Stephen.
Let's go back to Aguna. Todd don't know what the hell he's talking about.
And so when you have a court that's been stacked like that, they're going to try everything, just like they said in the very beginning. Oh, this is precedence. This is a woman's right to an abortion. Oh, it's precedence. Stare decisis. This is what they all said. And then they got in there and flipped it. So then you had Clarence Thomas saying, and I think we should revisit same-sex marriage. And I think we should revisit contraception. But he left out revisiting interracial marriage. How convenient. I think we should revisit that because I think coons like him should be in jail for corrupting white women and marrying them.
You don't like black men marrying white women?
I don't like Toms marrying white women.
Wow.
So the Supreme Court, if you look at this article, let me share this article. The Supreme Court is tomorrow, and no one's talking about this, but we're talking about it because we want our viewers to be informed.
Okay.
Tomorrow. Go ahead, Cousin Todd.
Okay, I thought I better finish that out because I just realized something hit my brain and said, you're dealing with people like Stephen and Keith. You better explain what you mean by that.
Todd's brain.
So I said, what I was actually saying there, because I know it's above your heads, Stephen and Keith, is that how convenient for this ignorant uh, uh, coward to leave out interracial marriage, but he wants to uh, make big government, which he wants small government, get into your bedrooms and determine who you can and can't marry when that was already done to him. But through other people's hard work, he overcame and he was able to marry a white woman. You see? And so he's dictating who you can and can't marry.
No, he's
And
not.
that is a contradiction in terms. When that was done to him, now he's doing it to others. And for him in particular to do that tells you what kind of low life pig he is.
Okay, so if you look at this article, it's by AP News, written, let's see, by who and when, by Mark Sherman, December 4th, 2022. And it says the Supreme Court is about to confront a new elections case, a Republican led challenge asking the justices for a novel ruling that could significantly increase the power of state lawmakers over elections for Congress and the presidency. They're set to hear arguments tomorrow, Wednesday, in a case from North Carolina, where Republican efforts to draw congressional districts heavily in their favor were blocked by a Democratic majority on the state Supreme Court because the GOP map violated the state constitution. A court-drawn map produced 7 seats for each party in last month's midterm elections in a highly competitive North Carolina. The question, and this is for each one of you, so listen to this, read this. The question for the justices is whether the U.S. Constitution's provision giving state legislatures the power to make the rules about the times, places, and manner of congressional elections cuts state courts out the process. Is that true? Keith, let's start with you.
Process.
There you go.
The process, if a law is broken, I mean, if they go contrary to the law, then that's when the courts are supposed to get involved. Courts are not making law. The state legislatures have the power to make laws. The justices have the power to uphold, those with a decision that upholds the law. I mean, they can't change laws that state legislatures make if they are constitutional. It's as simple as that.
Right.
Not by the Constitution, anyway.
Right.
So that's the way it should be.
Right. Right.
Praise the Lord. That's the
Right
way it should
on.
And that is correct. But what you see here is, and what we got to be careful of, because you're looking at the state and the federal, right? So at the state level, you're correct. State, judicial branch of the state government does not make laws. They deem them constitutional or not. What the judicial branch said was that these redistricting lines were unconstitutional. So they did that at the state level. So now what you're looking at is a heavily conservative court at the federal level weighing in on the state's ability to govern itself, which goes against the Constitution. So what you have here is a conflict of interest, especially if you're saying that, the judicial branch at the federal level, which is heavily stacked by Republicans. Trump appointed 3 additional judges, whatever, right? So the danger here is that if what we're seeing with the gridlock, especially in the federal government, in the House and the Senate, where things are going to the Supreme Court to adjudicate whether or not it's constitutional or not, what you have is people who are not elected. Again, judges are appointed. They're not elected by the people, actually influencing law. To Keith's point, they don't make law. They're saying it whether it's constitutional or not. But because they're very partisan, they're actually influencing and making laws. And so now you're seeing a conflict at the state and federal level. Because again, what's in North Carolina, where the Republicans are trying to keep power, may not hold way in other states where the Democrats have power and may do the same thing. So it's important for a balance of government to happen. So this could backfire if the federal judges get involved, which they seem to be wanting to get involved, especially with state legislators. I mean, that's a very dangerous slope that
So,
we're going down.
Stephen, did we have you comment on this?
Yeah, well, what they do now in the Supreme Court is we have a group of people that try to uphold the Constitution. They're not partisan. They're not left or right. They're not conservative or liberal. What they do, they try to uphold the Constitution, and that's what we want the Supreme Court to do. And that's where the left is screwed up. The left is like, let's put 17,000 judges in the Supreme Court, so they will always be on our side, no matter what it is. We don't care about the Constitution. We're gonna change the Constitution. This is what the left always tries to do.
So,
we're gonna change.
Stephen, can you answer the question?
What we're gonna do? We don't care about the Constitution.
Should the federal Supreme Court be allowed to overrule state
Wait a minute,
court?
Laguna. They're constitutionalists, and they want to uphold the Constitution. That's all they've ever done. Just like with Roe v. Wade or whatever else it is, it doesn't matter. What they're doing is saying that's states' rights. It's not that we're on the right but the others are on the left.
So let's unpack that. Unpack that.
They said they weren't going to do that.
All right, excuse me. We got to do one at a time. We got to do one at a time.
Constitutionalists. That's what the left doesn't understand. They want to.
You clearly don't understand.
They want to use courts to change everything. The only thing Keith and I want is for the courts to uphold the Constitution.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Okay,
so
go ahead,
Aduna. Here, Stephen, go ahead, you went on that eloquent rant like you always do right around this time on the show. Okay,
and you're
contradicting yourself because you're saying that, hey, the federal court is upholding the Constitution, right? The Constitution says that state legislators have the right to come up with their lines or districting lines and things like that. The state court in that same state is saying that these lines are unconstitutional, right? So now you're going on this big rant saying, well, the federal court is trying to uphold the Constitution. That's what the state court is doing too. They deem these districts unconstitutional. So you're going on this huge pivot talking about left and right, but it's the right that's sitting there trying to overturn states' rights. They're overturning the states' rights, saying that you don't have the right to adjudicate your own state because it's not in our favor. So all that BS that you just said is not a complete contradiction of what you're talking about. Okay. If they're going to uphold the Constitution, let the states do what they want to do, because there's no difference between that and this whole abortion debate that we're talking about. If they can draw the districts, they should be able to say whether or not abortion is legal in their state, right? To their state court should be able to say, well, these districts aren't constitutional. And then you're going to have the federal court say, oh, we're going to override your ability to uphold your own Constitution.
All right, Cousin Todd.
Yeah, I understand it's complex. This is
Cousin Todd.
You can't talk from the hip. You got to know what you're talking about.
It's just spin.
Okay, spin. Do you know what he just said? He said what you're saying is, yes, the Supreme Court should be constitutionalist. That means let the state take care of their own. They don't need the Supreme Court to determine whether or not those lines were drawn unfairly. They can determine that themselves. That it's as simple as that. Doesn't need to go to the Supreme Court, but it's going there because Republicans know that Donald Trump did his job and put these hacks on the Supreme Court to side with Republicans.
Okay.
You can't say states' rights.
Talk about.
You can't have it both ways.
Okay.
States' rights or not.
I want to talk about the NDAA.
I think that was over his head. I don't think he understood that.
But you can't count on.
It's the left. It's the left's fault.
Evidence shows that you cannot count. You can't count on Republicans to side with Republicans as much as you can count on Democrats siding with Democrats.
We're talking about the Constitution. Stop. Can you stop trying to label and scapegoat? Talk about the issue. Talk about policy. You'll have a lot more credibility.
I'm only responding.
Try it sometime.
I'm labeling to Todd. I'm responding to Todd's label.
So let me talk about the NDAA.
Be brave in this debate. Address the issue. That's all I ask, Keith.
Let me talk about the NDAA.
That's no fun.
The NDAA is the National Defense Authorization Act. President Obama signed it into law, but it includes a lot of things a lot of people don't know about. One such thing is a proposal to add marijuana permitting provisions to the defense bill. This NDAA has to go to the Senate, and it's going to go pretty soon. This article in The Hill by Alexander Bolton, dated today at 11:55 a.m., says that Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell today poured cold water on Democratic efforts to add language allowing banks to do business with state-approved marijuana businesses and permitting reform, a priority of Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, to the annual defense authorization bill. I want to talk about what that does. What does that do for, first off, banks, authorized marijuana businesses authorized by their states can't do business with banks federally. So they're big cash businesses. They're unable to do what other businesses can do, and it limits their ability for growth.
Right.
Joe Manchin in West Virginia, my mother's home state, my mother's home state, wants to probably do this to expand business and to bring more revenue to West Virginia. But this will allow marijuana businesses to federally put their money in banks federally. What does this do when this is in this NDAA? Are they trying to sneak it in? That has to go to the Senate. Are they going to be able to do it, Cousin Todd?
I don't know, because the Republicans work against their own people. It's a great idea because marijuana is going to be a boom, and the only people that's going to lose out are the banks, because they'll go through credit unions to get their money. And so banks want in, people want in. So it just would behoove government to allow this, but it's a Barack Obama idea. So,
well, I don't think it's a Barack Obama idea as much as it is he signed NDAA, which is not the specific. The NDAA is the vehicle, right, or the highway. The NDAA is a highway. This is a vehicle. Barack Obama didn't do anything about this vehicle. He signed the highway. So Aguna, or no, let me go to
open the door for this.
So let me go to Stephen. So when McConnell does this, isn't he inhibiting business?
Yeah, this is why I'm an independent thinker, and I know what's better for states. And I don't try to I don't cut anything around. What I'm saying is, what they have to do is, this is something that's on the verge of being huge, like what Todd is saying. This is something that's going to be huge, and it's great for states, and it's great for taxes, and it's great for everybody. Everything's going to be better in your states. Like Colorado, that was one of the first states to do it. They can't get any banks to work with them or anything else. This needs to pass. I don't care if it's Obama or the devil himself. This needs to work, because there's alcohol, there's cigarettes, there's gambling, there's whatever else that you can have taxes on and your state can make money on is a good thing. You don't have to partake. You tell your children, do not partake. Don't drink, don't gamble, don't smoke, don't smoke pot or whatever. But they're trying to take marijuana from, it's like a Schedule 2 or Schedule 1 drug. They're trying to reduce it from being like ecstasy or something else. They're trying to reduce that to like a number 1 or number 2. I can't remember what it is. But what it does is it makes it less of something that is so horrible for you, because cocaine is less of a drug, less of a dangerous drug than marijuana right now, because it has medicinal properties, and people understand that marijuana has medicinal properties. And if it helps the state, it helps with taxes, it helps build schools and roads and everything else, it's not a bad thing. That's where the
Stephen,
independent thinker in me comes in and says, let's do what's right.
okay, well,
It's a
Stephen,
natural thing. You don't have to manufacture it. You grow it like you would a
thank
poinsettia
you.
plant at Christmas.
Thank you.
Christmas.
Okay.
It's not
Well,
a bad
Stephen,
thing.
thank you. The White House also in this NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, it says this Fox News article written right here, published December 5th, 2022 at 3. That's today. No, yesterday, I'm sorry, at 3:35 p.m. says the White House maintains support for keeping military vax mandate as Congress weighs rolling it back in NDAA. Keith, in this NDAA, they're trying to say, hey, military, you don't have to be mandated to get the COVID vaccine.
Amen.
Good.
Amen.
Why should they be mandated? I mean, that's ridiculous. They never have in the history of our military. When was that ever been?
Do you know what
mandate?
type of shots?
Wait a minute.
Not from
Do you know what type of
experimental
shots
drugs.
they give you in basic training? Do you know what type of
Yeah,
shots?
well,
It's
yeah, but-
experimental. It's experimental, Aguna.
No, it's
Let me-
not. It's not experimental.
It's
Stop
not
saying
experimental.
that. It's not true.
But
It
Not
is
true.
100%
All
true.
And
No.
by the way, when you go to basic,
for-
you get a lot of experimental shots
Not
as well.
for-
So I don't know what point you're trying
Not
to
for-
make. You
Well,
get stuff
maybe
you
you
already
wanted
know.
in Tuskegee, if you wanted them to give people syphilis.
Tuskegee,
God.
say Tuskegee.
Oh,
Not
You know what I
he's
meant.
talking about
Maybe you wanted to
Tuskegee.
get
And
syphilis.
you see the pivot? You
Oh,
see the pivot?
wow.
It
He's
has
talking
Yeah.
about
nothing
he
to
went
do
to
with that.
Tuskegee.
that's
Oh,
the
he went
pivot.
to Tuskegee.
Let me
now.
say this.
No,
You've been all
let's
for
go to
that,
let's go to
Aguna.
Nazi Germany and the human
Not for the
experiments they were doing in Nazi Germany. Let's take it all the way.
But they're doing
off the rails.
experiments in
Don't just
the
go to
United
Tuskegee. Let's
States
go
with
all the way
COVID
off the
shots.
rails.
They're not
Not-
good for you.
That was good. Let me
Not-
say this.
Not for the
in the
flu.
military,
Not for
they
the-
get so many shots that they can't
don't
even
think so.
count them.
Exactly.
And never in the
But they've been
history,
proven.
Not for
never
the
in the history
Yes, they
of
do.
the military have they ever refused to
not
get
for the flu.
any shots up
Talk about
until
Tuskegee.
Donald Trump
Not
became
for the flu.
president.
Whatever, Aguna.
They
I'm
have
tired.
never refused any shots.
Get your stuff
And as a matter of fact,
You and Jesus are perfect.
Not for the flu.
Thank you.
oh
Excuse
my
me,
God.
excuse
Here's the
me.
thing. Well, we're overlooking. Stacey, it's my turn, so I can
Yeah.
bring some common sense to this thing. Okay. So
Not-
bottom line of it
tried.
is, as you can see,
Why is
the
it that you
problem
don't
isn't
want to comment? Why
quiet,
is it you-
Keith. You had your chance.
Why do you always
The
think
problem
you're the
isn't what's in.
you always think
The
your
problem
argument?
isn't. If you look at each issue, right? Whether it's vaccine mandates or whether it's marijuana being financed through the banks, what you're seeing here is every side is trying to use a way just to throw water on this NDAA because it's a vehicle. Sometimes, like what Mitch McConnell is trying to do, is say, okay, if we want to legalize marijuana, we need to have a separate bill in order for us to debate it. Let's not roll it into this large piece of legislation where you have all these other riders on it, right? Including this vaccine mandates and all this. So it's funny hearing Keith and Stephen try to argue over, oh, this is great. Oh, this. Bottom line of it is you got to give to get something, right? So what happens in this case, a large piece of legislation like this, every side has a little piece to gain in it. And typically you guys are against that. You guys don't want all these pork and all this stuff going on. But now when you look issue by issue, you're all of a sudden for it. But in order to get this no vaccine mandate, you're probably going to have to do something that the so-called boogeyman left wants. But rather not get anything than to compromise. So this is compromised government working, but you guys are against government working.
Where does the Constitution authorize all of this? All this power?
What are you talking about? It authorizes legislation to make laws. Shut up. Stop that nonsense. We know better than this, man. We just because you say Constitution a bunch of times doesn't mean you read it or know what's in it.
Where do you
We're beyond that. We're beyond that, Keith.
Okay. So let's look at this article, please.
Come on.
It says,
Constitution.
In August 2021, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin issued a memo making COVID vaccines mandatory for all service members. Republicans have been demanding the vaccine mandate on service members be lifted for months as unvaccinated troops have continued to be subjected to punishments, despite President Joe Biden declaring in September that the pandemic is over. As a result, the military is also struggling. As a result, the military, they say, is also struggling with recruitment and retainment. Yep. But I also want to say, At the same time, the CDC is warning of a triple demic of RSV, the flu, and COVID. ABC News reports yesterday at 1:34 p.m. that health officials are warning. Can you see that? Can you see this? Okay. That health officials are warning, if I can get this video out of the way that's not supposed to be here. Sorry. Thank you. Are warning that flu hospitalizations are at a 10-year high at the same time as a jump in RSV and COVID-19 cases. So they're telling people, CDC is saying, hey, wear masks. Keith, you used to always say COVID was like the flu. Well, now the flu is here. CDC is saying wearing a mask. Are you going to wear a mask, Keith?
No.
You can't stop me from breathing air.
I'm not wearing a mask.
Because I'm smart. I know more than science.
Now, see,
we never had to wear a mask.
Now, let me talk, Stacey. Let me talk for a minute. Aguna gets all the talking. No. But anyway, the point is I'm not wearing a mask because it's a flu. And this season is every year. And I've been doing this for years. And I never got COVID. And I'm not bragging about that. I'm just saying that
Why'd
Lord
you bring it up then?
Is my healer. The Lord is my defense. I keep telling you.
That's right. The Lord made vaccines too. The Lord made vaccines.
Depend on the strength
of
the
vaccine.
And I will not be wearing a mask. I won't be wearing a mask. That's
the Lord made stupidity too.
A vaccine will kill more people than COVID.
Because when I get oxygen,
that's not true, Stephen. We don't believe that nonsense. Why do you come on here with that same nonsense? Shut up.
The vaccine will kill more people than COVID.
So
it's not a vaccine.
So Aguna, if you look at this article,
does it say the vaccine kills
on their side?
Aguna, look at this article.
Yeah, because it's all about
CNN.com. CNN.com.
Don't get mad. Read a book.
CNN.com.
It's not about Dr. Fauci.
Okay,
CNN.com. Okay, I'm putting everybody on.
Okay.
This is ridiculous. CNN.com says flu vaccine appears to be a very good match to circulating strains, according to Brenda Goodman. CNN updated today at 5:44 p.m. This year's flu shot appears to be a very good match to circulating strains. However, she noted that flu vaccinations are lagging behind the pace of previous years. That to me, Aguna, says that we should be vaccinated, right?
You know, people are using vaccines, medication, and concerns around health as their Waterloo to stand on as if you're making some type of great stand for humanity. You're not. Okay, we have technology, we have trials and things like that are done through computers and stuff. I know that's called witchcraft to some of you on here, but things are not experimental. They're not all this little nonsense. Look,
if you look at that, Aguna, talk about how the flu is hitting the U.S. hard now that people are kind of pandemic weary. And they're kind of like tired of wearing masks.
It was proven, Stacey, during the pandemic, the flu was at an all-time low, probably because people were isolated and all that things, right? So there's a direct correlation there. Now, if you individual choose not to get it, I'm not sitting here saying you should get the vaccine, you shouldn't. We're talking about the U.S. military, right? Mandating in the military. And in the military, if the brass decides that, hey, we need to have these, because yellow fever, all these different vaccines that these guys get when they're deployed, and they're in these different areas. Now you're sitting there trying to make this political statement in the military because for some reason, private citizens think they know more than what we strategically need to do when we deploy our troops. We're all of a sudden keyboard experts. No, the military should decide if this is one of many of the cocktail drugs that they give soldiers, because they give them a lot. Hey, so be it.
Over 20.
Again, you see, and then I'm going to use Keith and Stevens' little terms. Hey, the far right are the only ones that are trying to make this thing an issue. Look, let the military decide what's best for the military. Why do we need to politicize things of public health? This used to be common sense. And if you go back to the Spanish flu and go back to some of the pandemics that we had previously,
1800s,
people all got lockstep involved and behind the preventative measures to eradicate the disease. We didn't have Trump sitting there telling you not to wear a mask. Meanwhile, he's getting the best types of care. He's getting the vaccine. He's doing all these things that he's telling you not to do. So, I mean, the hypocrisy is ridiculous. And this sounds like a broken record. All these fools on here talk about vaccine killing and all this other. Shut it up.
So, Stephen, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to share this screen with you. The CDC is recommending, if you look at this, COVID resurgence prompts new CDC mask guidance for Long Island. Can you see that? And parts of New York City. This was written yesterday by Christina Fan. And she's saying that, if I can get down here and get it through all these ads, oh my gosh. It's a season of giving, but be wary of giving your family members COVID. The virus is rebounding in 5 New York counties. Streets are bustling, masks are off, and capacity limits are gone. It feels as if COVID has been eradicated, but numbers indicate it's very much still here. So why would the CDC recommend indoor mask wearing in its latest COVID data tracker report, Stephen?
For a mask. 2 years ago, there was no sign of the flu. No one ever got the flu. Everybody got COVID, because even if you had the flu, it was COVID. Even if you got a cold, it was COVID. Can't y'all figure this out by now? Am I the only one that can think independently besides Keith? This is all garbage. Lloyd Austin was garbage. What he did to our military was garbage. He ought to be thrown out. He ought to be in prison for what he did to our soldiers. All of this is garbage, and it's going to be proven that COVID,
what are you reading from the dark
garbage.
web?
The flu is
He's
what
reading
they're
his
saying. Oh, it's going to be
manifesto.
the flu plus
manifesto.
COVID plus this. Wear your mask inside. It's to control you. You people are sheep. You have to understand you're being manipulated. And relatively smart people, like I think are on this show, are being manipulated. I don't know if Aguna is making money off masks. Maybe he has some kind of Nigerian company that makes masks or something.
That's a good idea.
I don't know what it is.
That's a good idea.
You're always trying to make money because you're always calling me and saying I'm a prince. Right. You're always trying to make money.
Don't be stupid enough to give it to them. I'm sure independent thinkers, you're giving them money
understand
too.
it. We know
Supply
it
and demand.
We're not stupid anymore in this country. So you need to change your tactics, change what you're doing, and then you're going to get us back. But until then, we don't believe any of your garbage, any of your crap.
Okay.
So
all right.
try
something
something
new.
Man, you
try
feel better
something
now.
new, Todd.
You feel better now.
Try something
Now,
new,
Todd.
Aguna.
Try something new, Todd.
No, I'm gonna email you as soon as I get off the show.
I know, and I'll probably give you all my money.
I have one of your
I'll give
family
you all my
members
money.
captured.
Oh, hilarious.
That's
And
what
you need to send me
get the money,
$1,000 so
and
I
then
can get them out.
rich. I understand, Aguna.
I want that cash app. Give me
I
that cash app.
understand. That's what the Nigerians do. I get it.
That's right. And we make millions. And we're
I
coming
know.
for you.
You probably
We're
got
coming for
most
your
of it from me.
children. We're coming for you.
All right. So if you look at this article, the U.S. Congress, Reuters came out with this article today at 6:53 p.m. U.S. Congress could punt funding bill into 2023. McConnell says we have 10 days before government runs out of money. But Congress may be forced to delay until early 2023 the final agreement on funding the government through the end of its fiscal year, instead of relying on a stopgap measure to keep the lights on. The federal government is currently set to run out of money on December 16th without a vote on either an omnibus bill funding the government through September 30, 2023, or a short-term bill known as a continuing resolution. Why do we keep running into this every year, Cousin Todd?
Because
That money.
you've you've elected too many Republicans. And so they like to make deals and threaten to shut down the government unless they get tax cuts for wealthy people. And they always seem to hold the threat of Social Security and, the safety net. And I don't know why they always go after Social Security. It's such a drop in the bucket. And as well as anything that's going to help poor people and people like Keith and Stephen, who are poor. They don't admit
I'm
that.
not poor. I don't think we're poor.
Right. I know you
will
don't
be when I
think
send you
so.
this
I'll
email.
put
I know.
my bank account against yours.
I know you don't think you're poor, but people
My
that
beard
make
looks better than yours, so I can't be
under
poor.
He's got
Oh.
that. Look at that Stetson piano he has in his background, Todd. Come on now.
No, it's a knockoff. It's a knockoff of Guna, but it's not cheap.
That's right.
All right.
That's an
So let me
expensive
move on because we're running out of time. Walker versus Warnock.
Oh yeah.
One
Come
quick
on,
comment
Walker.
before you go
You
there.
ever- somebody
Thank
called me a coon. A coon is a good animal.
I want to make
it's a
one
smart
quick
animal.
comment about
Okay,
Todd,
go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
about me being poor. Todd, just consider moving to California and see if you can survive our high prices, and you'll see how
You
poor.
know what, Keith? Keith, you're rich. You're rich in the kingdom of God, Keith.
Yeah, but no,
You're rich in the kingdom of
point.
God.
Yeah, but
my
my
point.
You show love for your fellow man, Keith.
I
Yes,
want
he
Todd
does.
to move to
No.
California, and I want to see how Todd can buy a house here or Todd can rent. Either
Why are you
rent.
attacking Todd?
I'm not trying to shame you or Stephen. I'm just
Yes, you
saying
did. You said we were poor.
that's not
You guys are
shameful.
poor in
You
spirit.
said we
It's
were poor.
Christmas.
That's not
You're not
that's
poor.
not shaming you. Listen, when I say poor, I mean anybody that makes under $65,000 a year is, in my estimation, when you think about rich, middle class, and poor, what is middle class and what is rich? So unless you're making
So,
200,000,
Todd, do you make over 65,000 a year?
ma'am, I'm not talking to you about how much money I make.
All right.
Are
We're
you
running out of
just
time.
saying-
Excuse me.
I'm just
Excuse me.
saying.
Let's look at the screen
I
I
make that
shared.
off of one email scam. Come
Okay.
on.
Ah,
Hello, come on. You know it, Steven. Come on. You know what it is. I get that in one email.
You can't get
Come
me.
on. All that
So
money.
if you look at
You
this,
can't get me.
That's what we do.
2022, excuse me. Look at this. This is showing the
Come on, Walker.
64%. This is showing the 64% of votes in latest results from New York Times. They're saying Herschel Walker's
Come on, Walker.
50.6% with Raphael
Herschel.
49.4%. My question is, let's start with Keith.
start with me.
Okay, cousin
You
Todd.
know, all the rural counties
Let's start
report
with Keith.
first.
Wait, let's
You know
let's
that, right?
okay, go
So
ahead,
when
cousin Todd.
when all the votes come in, don't get mad.
Okay, we're talking about Herschel Walker and Warnock.
Right.
What did you have a question for me, or did
Yes.
you just want me to?
Why is Trump pushing Herschel Walker so much?
I don't know. Maybe he's great in bed.
Because he's making money off of Walker. He gets 90% of the donations that go to the Walker campaign.
Well, this is the thing. Probably, but
True.
Herschel Walker, and Stephen will admit this, he doesn't know what he's doing or saying. Now, if you had a Democrat candidate who had done half of the things Herschel Walker did, what would they be saying about that Democrat? Oh, he's a typical Democrat. He beat his wife. He held a gun to her head. Yeah,
Cousin Todd, I voted Democrat in
On
2018
and on
because
and
I was
on.
scared the
So-
Republicans would have too much power.
I know
I'm
you
an
did.
independent.
You said the Republicans were crazy. You said Donald Trump was like a
I'm an
dictator.
independent. Donald
On and
Trump
on.
has not
Now
been
you
proven.
flipped. Now
Donald Trump
you
has not been
flipped.
proven to be a bad person.
Why did you say he was a dictator?
Because I thought with everything that he had behind him that he
Go
could be a
ahead.
dictator. It turned out Joe Biden is a dictator.
But
So anyway,
There's no
this is
but.
the thing.
Your
hey,
head.
ask the people that Trump hired and turned against him. And why don't you ask people that actually are close to him? Ask Pence.
The people who turned against him did it because they thought they could make hay.
Yeah, and who hired them?
They
Who
couldn't
hired
make
them?
hay.
Who made the decision
Donald
to hire
Trump
them?
is the cleanest politician we've ever known in this country besides
Come
George
on, man.
Washington.
You don't even believe
Okay,
that yourself,
Stacey messed
man.
up my
All right.
viral moment.
Stop
but,
it.
Donald Trump
Stop
is
the
clean.
foolishness.
How did I miss the
Stop
viral
defending
moment?
undefendable.
Oh, I can't. But
All right.
anyway, Herschel Walker has no business in this race
Because he's black.
because he's black.
I guess so. I know you hate black people that don't think
Why'd
the way
you bring
you
up
do.
color, man?
I
What
guess
how
he's
about-
Are you a racist?
Why are you bringing up
Maybe you're
color?
Uncle Todd.
Only racists see
Uncle Todd,
racism.
Right.
Why
Because
do you
Why
want
are
black
you-
Stephen?
you don't
Shame
like
on
him
you.
because he's not the kind of black
Why
guy
can't he
you
be a
like.
man? Why can't he be a man before he's black, Stephen? Why did you
Because
bring up color?
Stephen,
That's a
Because
because
he's an
cowardly act.
Uncle
that's
You
Tom.
should be ashamed of
racist.
yourself.
Because he's an Uncle
All right.
Tom,
Shame
like
on you.
Clarence Thomas. Because Clarence Thomas doesn't agree with Todd, he's an Uncle Tom.
Clarence
Don't try
Thomas
to
did
pivot.
agree
No,
with
it's
Nobody
not
was
me.
me,
making it
Buddha.
about
It's
race.
cousin
Nobody was
Todd.
making it
You don't
about
like
race.
What are
any
you
black
talking
person
about?
who's a
Projecting.
conservative.
Clarence
This is what's
Thomas.
called projecting. He's not
All
a
right.
smart candidate.
Excuse me. So look at the screen, please. Thank you. Nearly half, or 45% of public K through 12 schools had at least one teacher vacancy as of October, according to government data released today. And this is CNN article by Katie Labasco, published at 3:35 p.m. today. Let's talk about this. This pandemic, and then we're going to go into our roundtable. This pandemic has caused a lot of havoc in our schools. And we are still dealing with it. You know, I have a cousin who is a school administrator, and she's seeing the children fighting and totally suicide attempts and total unsettling of children's schools. And we're losing a lot of people working with those children. They're leaving from burnout, from fatigue. What do we do to help our schools, starting with Keith and Stephen, then Aguna, and then Cousin Todd?
Well, we've got to get back to our founding principles. We need to start educating them in basic math, science, and let's see, history, American history.
History? Oh, you
We
don't
need
want them to learn history. Now,
We need
come
to
on.
teach them we need to teach them how to read and write. There are many of those facets. The kids can't read, they can't write, they can't do math, they don't know science, they don't
What
know
does this
Okay.
have to do
Well,
with
history.
teacher
yeah, what does it
vacancies?
have to do with teacher vacancies and trauma
You're trying to
Well,
solve
from
the kids'
COVID?
learn.
The
How
reason
do
they
you
don't
know
know
And
this,
trauma
how
from
does it make
COVID.
the
you
reason
want to be
they
a
don't
teacher?
know this, why don't you mute everybody like you've been
Okay,
doing?
go ahead.
You need to focus on
Well,
the
as soon as at Keith, as soon as you stop talking over everybody like you have been doing, I'll start muting them.
That's right,
Talking.
Chief.
God.
Address the question,
Anyway,
please. We're talking
thank
about
you.
vacancies, not
So
education. Talking about
the whole
teacher vacancies.
The whole idea here is the teachers are out not because they're sick, not because of COVID, but they're out because they're tired of the really the fascist ways that the schools are being governed by, especially in LAUSD, which is the second largest union in the country, the second largest after New York. So education wise, the left fascists are dominating. They are dominating every aspect of our lives. They're dominating every
By doing
industry.
what?
How much do
And
teachers
so
get
when
paid?
they
So
do
you're
that,
saying that they should increase
all
the salary
of,
of teachers?
race theory, critical race theory, all of this nonsense
Stop
about
scapegoating, address the
all this
vacancy
stuff
issue.
about genders, and all that.
Year or two and just chill out and not really do anything. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't
Okay,
know.
so if you look at this
So
article,
teachers are
Stephen,
lazy. You're
it
saying that
says,
teachers are
excuse
lazy?
me, a
Yes,
majority of schools
yes.
said that too few candidates were applying for open teaching positions. About 1/3 said that job candidates felt that the salary and benefits were not enough.
And that's what it comes down to, Stacey. All this nonsense that people are saying. Look, bottom line, you
Yeah,
need to pay them more. And also,
Stacey,
these teachers,
but
the
Aguna,
teachers are not lazy.
but
I know a
Aguna,
lot of teachers that have to pay for their own school supplies. They got to
but
go in there.
Aguna.
They got sometimes teachers pay out of their own pockets for some of their kids to go and eat lunch that day. So there's a lot of demand on teachers, not just to be teachers. They're not going in there and just teaching in the classroom. They're being aunts, uncles, parents in some
But
cases.
Stacey,
So being a teacher now is a lot more responsibility than just coming in there with a textbook and saying, hey, read this lesson plan. There's a lot more to it, and that's why the burnout is happening.
but Stacey, you haven't called on him. I haven't finished with my answer yet.
Well, we're finished with your answer now. I'm
But
sorry,
I haven't
Stephen,
finished.
we're
I
out of
haven't even
time.
answered your question
We're
yet.
out of time.
You
You
got
can't
enough
finish it.
independent
So-
thinker.
He
Just
he
go
jumped
think
on top of me
independently.
when I was
Go
talking,
think
and you muted me.
independently.
Cousin
You're not a
Todd.
victim, Stephen.
Okay.
No, I'm not a victim.
All right, then don't act like it.
All right.
Don't act
Now,
like it. All right.
let me say, my mother.
Todd, let me talk for you, Todd.
As-
Let me talk over you,
No,
Todd.
ma'am.
Stephen, man.
Ma'am,
See,
ma'am.
teachers have to deal with bullies like that. And so
Okay.
you got to deal with bullies. You get burned out.
My mother was a teacher. My aunts were teachers. Stacy's mother was a teacher. Our families are teachers, long line of teachers, and so their pay is short. As a matter of fact, my mother left teaching and went to work for the
Okay,
post
thank you,
office
Todd. You can't talk all day.
because the post office, strangely enough, paid more than a teacher's salary. So, Stephen, they do not get paid enough. Aguna was right. And so, what our family wound up doing was buying children's lunch and giving children little gifts like pencils, paper, pens, that kind of a thing.
Then they
And
should work for
so,
the post office.
Okay, so Aguna, we're out of time, but I need you to comment on sports first.
how
World Cup, real
dumb.
quick, Aguna, and then the
World Cup.
Eagles.
Hey, there were some great games today. I mean, Portugal destroyed Sweden, and Spain lost to Morocco. Now I know people are like, "Who the hell are these?" Look, Spain is a provincial powerhouse. They won back in 2010, and they played against Morocco. And Morocco is not even ranked in the top 20. And what happened was the Moroccan defense was so strong that they forced it to PKs and overtime and ended up winning. Spain didn't even make one PK. It's one of the biggest upsets in the field of 16 in World Cup history. So, I mean, you watch these games, and these people are playing for the notoriety in their country. And so, you know, it just see the passion of it all. These countries shut down to watch it. So it's great things. I will say this. Can I say one thing about the Warnock Herschel Walker race?
And the Eagles.
Warnock has this in the bag. My frat brother, he has it in the bag. If you look at what's going on right now,
a piece of garbage.
Shut up. The bottom line of it is
he's
already Herschel Walker is so close right now, and 50% of Fulton County hasn't even reported yet. 50% of DeKalb County. So all the largest districts in the state haven't even halfway reported yet, and Herschel Walker is only above by a little bit in these rural counties. So it's going to be fine.
I
wish you had a better vocabulary than garbage and
I
all
wanted to ask, why did Stephen want
think of vocabulary? Think of that.
Okay,
why did Stephen want Walker to win?
Because Stephen can't say one thing about Walker's platform.
Aguna, we're out of time.
Aguna, he's a piece of garbage.
Excuse me.
Walker is a piece of garbage.
Look at the comment down the bottom. It says Paper Doll made a comment. It said Republicans, politicians, and voters don't care what kind of person is running. Walker, a person who is clearly intellectually unfit.
That's Joe Biden.
A warm Republican.
That's why he resonates with Stephen right there.
That's Joe Biden.
That's one of our.
That's Joe Biden.
He has to pivot. Talk
and
about
so
Walker.
let Stephen,
I'm tired of you guys talking over me.
Let Stephen answer the question.
I want Aguna to talk about the Eagles.
Go ahead,
Aguna.
Yeah, so the Eagles, of course, they don't get any respect. I was at the game.
What?
Lovely. They don't get any respect, right? It's interesting because ESPN put out a poll and they said that the Cowboys have a 50% chance of making it to the Super Bowl. The Eagles have a 30% chance, and then I think the Vikings have a 9% chance. But bottom line of it is, we're used to being the underdog. They're playing very good. I mean, they're beating people different ways. They're beating in the passing game. Their defense is stepping up. So they're having a very balanced attack, and they're attacking teams with their strengths and weaknesses, right? So Tennessee was a run-first team with Derrick Henry. He only had 30 yards. They stacked the box. They forced Tannehill to throw. They sacked him like 6 times. So they're playing really good ball at a time of year where it matters, when the playoffs, are coming. So we'll see. They do need to win the next 2 games. They play New York this weekend. That's going to be a big game. If they beat New York, they play Chicago. And so my gut says that the NFL is going to try some shenanigans and make us drop one of these next 2 so that
no way.
The December 24th game, this is my theory, that December 24th game in Dallas is going to be for the number 1 seed for the NFC East. And the only way that becomes real is if the Eagles have to lose at least once before we play Dallas. And that's what I'm thinking. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're going to the Giants. We're going to Chicago. I've seen weird things happen in the NFL. So it's going to come down to these 2 teams. You just saw what happened with the 49ers. Garoppolo is out for the year. Purdy, who was Mr. Irrelevant in the draft, is the quarterback.
What about talk real quickly about Russell Wilson?
Oh man, Russell. So I mean, what about him? He's become a liability again. They paid Russell Wilson $245 million to go to Denver.
That's a lot of money.
And he hasn't really delivered. So the one person you may not want to rule out of the playoffs is Aaron Rodgers. Okay, I know people are like, He was hurt and everything like that, but he won. They won this past weekend, and their road to the playoffs. I mean, if they win out, they still have a chance of making the playoffs. And I don't think the Giants are going to make the playoffs. I don't think the Giants are going to. I mean, hopefully they won't win this weekend.
Isn't he married to that singer?
Todd, please.
Okay, so let me move on. I think someone told me they wanted to make a comment. Real fast, Stephen, you want to make a comment about Twitter and Elon Musk, I think?
Oh, yeah. Elon Musk is right now, he's systematically dismantling the Democrat Party and everything they've done that's wrong, that's involved this country. And stay tuned, everybody, because Elon Musk is bringing out the truth against everything that the Democrat Party has done. Do you like
Elon Musk?
To ruin these elections, to hurt these elections.
Like Elon
and
Musk?
I love your smug little smiles and your googly little eyes, because when the truth comes out, you're going to be crying. All of y'all are going to be crying little tears, and the Democrat Party is going to be done.
Who hurt you?
All right,
Stephen?
thank you.
Who hurt you?
So to our first responders in our community, you make our lives livable.
Look at
to our women and men of the U.S. military for all that you do in sacrificing.
You'll be all right, Stephen.
So that we are free to say whatever we choose on the show. We are forever indebted. On behalf of Aguna, the Nigerian
Go Eagles.
Republican.
Warnock is going to win, by the way. It's a lock. Garbage.
Stephen, the independent thinker.
He is
Herschel Walker, by the way, is going to win.
Put some money on it. Put some money on it.
Keith, the constitutional conservative.
Herschel Walker wins, we lose.
And my cousin Todd.
Yeah, Todd. There you go.
Give him Todd.
Man. Hey, that better not be a double-breasted suit, Todd.
That's not double-breasted, it's single-breasted.
Oh, I'm Stacey Johnson.
You have two breasts.
What, you have two breasts?
I'm Stacey Johnson.
Who's your date?
I'm Stacey Johnson. Thank you for watching us. Check us out. Check us out.
Keith used to teach school, so his school is having a little problem.
Won't quit. Y'all won't quit. I can't even talk.
We're having too much fun. We miss each other.
Check us out on our new Instagram channel at Sporlitics. Check us out on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Like and subscribe. Check us out on Stephanie Stallworth's The Flow Television Network. We'll see ya.
And check us out on Stephen and Keith's porn site. Good
night.
Don't knock it till you see it.
I made a mistake. That was a slip of the tongue.
Oh, good, Todd.
By the way, got news for you, Todd. The LAUSD, the report is out. About $70,000 a year is what the average teacher salary is, and $70,000. So that exceeds your $65,000. And then
it's not enough money, Keith. It's not enough money.
Yeah,
they need to make $1 million a year. These teachers.
I know.
You think $65,000 is enough money for teaching?
Babies.
Well, I'm just saying, in comparison, that's LAUSD. What about the rest?
That's LA. I mean, that's not $75,000.